You said, "अरे ये तो 88 की जो picture है जिसको award मिला वैसी picture वापस बनाई है इसने." So let me ask you that.
The answer will be there. There's a very generous invitation now to sample the film with only $95. All it costs is 95 rupees Thursday night. All answers will be there.
But I also want to do. Did you deliberately poke the bear when you guys decided let's make the posters look alike? Let's use the same inspiration. So you said copy a inspiration and decided. So did you? I said no. I want to poke the bear here.
No, because we live in an information age of images, and there was only one way to look at the film. If you look at even Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, even our own Dada Saheb Phalke, they all look the movie same way, whether it's Cinema Paradiso, Godard, is the most famous iconic image is Godard looking at the film with cigar in his mouth. So I think that was, it's how the cinema was celebrated, because it has to be always against the light to be seen, otherwise it meant nothing. If there was no light, the celluloid had no meaning,
But SRK will say, any publicity is good publicity. Even if it's negativity, bad news travels faster because people will talk about them.
You said it.
So did you know you'll get into it? No. You're not disagreeing.
Well, to some extent, all publicity is good publicity. It's just that in this particular case, for every filmmaker, a film is very close and dear to them. And I think it's really important that audiences watch the film and make their minds up for themselves, because, this is a film that's inspired by Nalin's own childhood. Growing up, in a village and falling in love with cinema. So, and in that sense, any film that is about film and that is about being inspired by film will have certain similar themes.
I guess, people are passionate and, people have passionate responses to things. And I don't even blame the audience completely because the people who said that, because they hadn't watched the film. It wasn't available for them to watch. So like Nalin and Sira say, October 14th is right around the corner. So we're really excited to see what people say. And Nalin did poke the bear with a couple of tweets.
That's what I'm saying. On a serious note, you are up against some really, really big stories and big banners. Were you surprised that you got picked ahead of some of the others?
Film is such a subjective medium. There's nothing binary about it. There's no black or white. A jury will make a selection, and I guess we just all have to go along with it. In this case, we were on the right side of the fence. In certain other cases, we might not have been. We're just honored and privileged to have been chosen, and we intend to put our best foot forward at the Academy Awards. We've got great partners in Sam Goldwyn Films in the US, and then we've got Orange Studios in Europe. They've been behind some of the most successful, films in the foreign language category in the last few years. And with their help and guidance, we intend to be able to get as many members of the Academy to watch the film as possible. The extent of, we talk about lobbying and it sounds like a lot of smoke and mirrors, but really it's about getting the Academy members to watch the film. And that's really what our intention is going to be in the next few months. And if Dheer wants to add anything to that, then Dheer, please go ahead.
अभी तक उसको talk time ही नहीं दिया ना धीर को.
I'm happy just listening. But no, I think adding to what Sid said, earlier it was really challenging to get Academy members to watch the film because you'd have to send them 35mm prints, wherever they were in the world, because how else do you get them to vote for the film? No one's going to vote for a film without watching it. And especially to get members of the international committee to watch the film because they have to watch all 15. The rules have changed slightly now, which has made it slightly easier for them to watch the film. There's a streaming platform that the Academy has, so they can watch it online, remotely, wherever they are in the world, which is great. And now the new rules say that if you're on the international committee, you have to watch all the 15 films that are assigned to you. It's just a compulsion. Otherwise, you're not allowed to vote. So it's become slightly easier. Of course, there's going to be a publicity campaign that needs to be put out, which will be extensive. And we're lucky to have Sid, us. We have Orange Studio. We have Samuel Goldwyn Films. So we have a few people there. And Sid has had experience before. He's had a couple of entries that have gone before. Both our partners have won multiple Academy Awards for films like The Father and The Artist, and just 2 years ago with another round. So I feel like we're in good hands, and we'll fight to get that nomination.
Bachchan Saab just turned 80. Happy birthday, Bachchan Saab. And he said that this is going to bring back the lost cause of celluloid and 35mm. But उनका एक dialogue है ना, मेरे पास गाड़ी है, बंगला है, बैंक बैलेंस है, तुम्हारे पास क्या है? So this is a question that a lot of the other hopefuls are also asking. तुम्हारे पास क्या है? Because उनके पास गाड़ी है, बंगला है, बड़ा नाम है, बड़ा बैनर है, पैसा है.
हमारे पास सिनेमा है.
Hello and welcome. There have been multiple strikes across at least 10 cities in Ukraine, including in the capital Kyiv. Moscow has confirmed that these were ordered by the Kremlin, directly by Vladimir Putin. This seems to be in retaliation for the Kerch Bridge in Crimea being blown up over the weekend. But with these multiple strikes, it seems highly unlikely that this war is going to end anytime soon. And more importantly, is Vladimir Putin showing that he's doubling down? Nothing less than an outright Ukrainian defeat will be enough for him. Nothing less can be a face saver after 7 months of this war.
Chaos, confusion, catastrophe. Sirens rang the air as multiple people were left dead after a series of explosions struck Kyiv and several other Ukrainian cities. This was the moment when missiles rained down on the capital, captured by shell-shocked residents. A missile slammed into a glass bridge, which is a popular tourist spot. A playground in Kyiv was one of the several civilian targets hit by the strikes. The purpose was clear: inflict as much damage and ensure as many casualties. While Russia's war has dragged on for nearly 8 months, the last time Kyiv was struck was back in June. Recording a video while out on the streets, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky accused Russia of targeting energy infrastructure across the country.
They want panic and chaos. They want to destroy our energy system. They are hopeless.
The missile attacks in Ukraine come just 2 days after there was a massive explosion on a bridge linking Crimea to Russia. The blast on the bridge sparked celebrations across Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin admitted that Moscow had launched long-range missile attacks against Ukraine, calling it a response to terrorist acts by Kyiv.
Russia's response will be tough, and its scale will be proportionate to the level of threats posed against us.
From mobilizing troops to annexing Ukrainian territory and now doubling down on the military conflict. Is Putin's escalation in Ukraine a losing strategy?
All right, let's go across to our guests. Sushant Sareen is Senior Fellow with the Observer Research Foundation. Fred Wires, a political analyst and a Russia affairs expert. Alexei Goncharenko is a member of Parliament of Ukraine. Mr. Goncharenko, I'll start with you first. Mr. Putin spoke to the television channels a short while back, and he said that this was in retaliation to what happened in Crimea over the weekend. Do you see this as a significant escalation by the Kremlin in this 200-day-long war? And what may the Ukrainian response be? Because as of right now, more than 10 cities, including your capital, Kyiv, have been targeted.
Hello, that is one more lie from Putin, some retaliation. He started this war in 2014, in retaliation for what? Then he started full-scale invasion on February 24. And starting from February 24, every day we have missile attacks. Yes, this time they are very massive, but in general, that's nothing new for us. So I can't tell you, I don't know what are the reasons of Putin. Maybe he wants to show some kind that he is capable of to kill civilians. I don't know. The problem of Putin is that he showed that he is not capable to win over Ukrainian army. His army is losing. They are losing ground every day, starting from the end of August. And now I think this was an attack of desperation. He's desperate because he can't change the situation on the military front. He can't win over our army. So he started again, continues again to kill our civilians. Like he's saying we attacked military targets. What is military target? Playground or university, Kyiv University or other places. They're completely and for sure not military targets. He just tries, and he made it on Monday morning when people are coming to the work, to inflict as many casualties as possible, to kill as many people as possible, and also to destroy energy infrastructure. So Russia is state terrorist, and Putin is terrorist number one in the world. And he just showed it again.
The Kremlin is saying that this is in response to the blowing up of the bridge in Crimea, the only bridge that connects Crimea to the Russian mainland. Although no group has taken responsibility, the Kremlin firmly believes that this was done by Ukrainian Secret Service agents. In fact, Mr. Putin in his address today said that this was a terrorist act. Do you believe that by bombing the Crimea bridge, you have brought in another front into this war?
What front? We have full-scale invasion from February 24. Don't you know this? He's targeting and hitting our cities, our kindergartens, schools, hospitals from February 24 every day. It was on Friday before Saturday explosion on Crimean Bridge. It was on Thursday. It was on Wednesday. It is every day. So when speaking, Ukraine will fight for our victory, for our land, because we don't have any other option. For us, it's to be or not to be. We have not started this war. We never wanted any war. We are the most peaceful nation on the planet. We are the only nation in human history which voluntarily in 1994 gave up nuclear weaponry. The only one. Well, the only thing we want is peace. But Putin just wants to kill all of us, to make genocide, to wipe out Ukraine from the map of the planet. But we will not let it happen. So we will win this war. And every day we will continue to liberate our towns, villages, and cities. And Putin will lose this war. But what he is doing today with this missile attack, with these attacks, once again shows that he is terrorist number one. And he is saying that something about terrorist attacks, it's very funny.
Let me ask Fred Wire, who closely tracks the Kremlin and the Kremlin's responses. The Ukrainians are very clearly saying that even in today's attacks, the missile strikes hit civilian targets, including the University of Kyiv. And there's this video that's gone viral of a young girl who was filming at the time that these missile attacks happened. How can Russia, how can Vladimir Putin convince the world that civilians are not on his target when the casualties on the ground seem to amply indicate that indeed civilian targets were hit today?
I think they always are. It's one of the mysteries of this particular operation, why after the first wave of attacks, missile attacks in February, the Russians stopped bombing infrastructure targets. They didn't hit the trains, the bridges on the Dnieper. They still haven't. And only Putin can probably explain why the Russians didn't do that, because the American style of warfare is that they would do that on day one. A barrage of cruise missiles is their signature style of warfare. And so the Russian attacks, and I do take the previous speaker's outrage to heart. I mean, Russia launched a war of aggression against Ukraine. You can't say that often enough. But if we're analyzing the course of this war, it is remarkable that they didn't start this thorough bombing of infrastructure until now. And yes, I'm sure civilian targets are being hit, but I'm sure the Russians are trying to knock out Ukraine's electricity grid. Mm-hmm. In fact, President Zelensky said as much, because most Ukrainian trains run on electricity, so that paralyzes the transport network. They will probably go after bridges. They will probably now be going much more aggressively after what you call dual purpose infrastructure, which is what the Crimea bridge was, civilian object, but also used by the military.
Military purposes.
So, a legitimate target, you would say. So I think this is a part of a Russian warfighting strategy.
I'll get Sushant and Mr. Chakravarti also in, but I think Mr. Goncharenko wants to make a quick point. Yeah.
Yeah, just that is unfortunately you just that's not true. They are attacking infrastructure all the time. They are attacking bridges, bridges near Odessa, train stations, electricity, everything. So that's just not true what you are saying. On February 24, it was a big attack, but after this, almost every week we have attacks on our infrastructure. Just this day it was massive and concentrated.
Okay.
But before it was, so that's not true that they were not attacking our infrastructure. They were attacking our infrastructure all these 8 months.
Sure. So Shansarin, do you believe, as the Ukrainian, in fact, even Zelensky said this, that this is a sign of desperation? Since the last week of August, Russia has been losing territory, whether it is in Izium, whether it's in Kupiansk, and then, of course, parts of Donetsk as well. Do you believe that this is Putin's way of signaling back that this war is very much in his control and that he intends to take it to its logical conclusion, which, according to the Kremlin, is a Russian victory and nothing less will suffice?
Look, the war is certainly not going Mr. Putin's way. It hasn't gone Mr. Putin's way right from the first week. That much is very clear. Now, the reasons for that are plenty. It is the kind of support that Ukraine has received from the West. It is also linked to how the Russians have fought the war, both at the strategic level as well as, purely in terms of battlefield tactics. And the recent battlefield reverses are very clear. But I think the immediate provocation was, of course, the destruction of the bridge. And I think that was a severe blow. And there is mounting pressure, or at least that's the impression we get sitting out here, that there is mounting political pressure on Mr. Putin on the way the war is going. Now, clearly he had to start doing something to show that, enough is enough. And now, the great Russian military machine will press on. And look at the kind of changes they've made in the general staff just over the weekend. All of that clearly indicates that they're going to up the ante. And that seems to be happening with the kind of strikes they have carried out today, which is going to lead to some kind of escalation.
Okay.
Now, whether this will actually lead to some kind of, gains for the Russians, I'm not entirely convinced of that. But I think what is going to happen is that this war is going to become bloodier. This war is going to get further prolonged. And I think whatever little chance there was, Zaka, of any kind of dialogue, some kind of peace negotiation, some kind of ceasefire, I think that's been blown out of the window today. That's the sense I'm getting.
We're also getting a statement from the Ministry of External Affairs. I'll play that out and then I'll go to Ambassador Pinnock on this. The MEA has said that the attack on Ukraine is deeply concerning. They're worried about the escalation in conflict, including the targeting of infrastructure and civilian deaths. We reiterate, the escalation of hostility is in no one's interest. We urge the immediate cessation of hostilities and the urgent return to the path of diplomacy and dialogue. So this is the Ministry of External Affairs' official statement on what's happened today in Ukraine. Let me go to Ambassador Pinnock Chakravarti. India has, of course, taken a very neutral, middle-of-the-road position, if you will, over the last couple of weeks or so, since the Prime Minister made that statement in Samarkand in front of Vladimir Putin that this is not the era of war. India has, of course, been doubling down on that position. But how long can India confine itself to these mere statements? Because ultimately, the West, as they say it and as they put it, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. I mean, India is going to be judged by its actions, whether it's the votes at the United Nations or whether it is, continuing to depend less on Russian oil and Russian weaponry. Because mere statements, and increasingly, as these attacks escalate, as Russia escalates, it'll become difficult to just confine to these statements.
Well, one thing we must note and keep in mind whenever India makes a statement, that this is not a war that India started. This is not a war in India's neighborhood. It is a war far away in Europe. And who is responsible for this war? The Europeans themselves and Russia. Why did this war happen? They have to answer for it. We don't have to interfere in this in any physical way, but we will make our position very clear by statements and words and votes, because that is all we are prepared to do at the moment. We can't send soldiers, we can't send boots on the ground. But about the war itself, I think the key word here is escalation. There has been clearly an escalation by this bombing of the bridge. the bridge to Crimea. And it is who has done it? Nobody can claim it, but we know who has done it, and it's the Ukrainians, obviously. After all, it's their war, so they will try to hit, infrastructure which will hamper the Russian war effort. And clearly, this will hamper the Russian war effort. So I think the escalation part has been set in motion, and I think we will see more escalation in the next weeks and months, which is not good for either side. And I think the Ukrainians are fighting, of course, for their land and for their territory, for their sovereignty, and they are being helped by the West. I think this war has now expanded, and it's not just Russia and Ukraine. It's Russia and Ukraine backed by America and NATO. So I think this is the kind of scenario that one is increasingly inclined to see, and I don't think this is going to help either side. As we have said, this is not the era of war, Prime Minister has said. And I don't think this is going to lead to any further. In fact, any peace initiatives that may have been, or I don't think there was any, but even it recedes even further. So it's not a good sign, and this escalation is a bad sign, and it's going to cause more bloodshed. Missiles will strike all over the place, because Russia is not going to take this lying down.
All right.
So I think both sides realize that there will be hits and counter hits, and poor people, the civilians, will suffer in this, because the missiles sometimes go off their target and go and hit something else, and that's going to happen and I suppose it has happened in Ukraine.
Let me go back to Mr. Goncharenko, the Ukrainian MP. What Ambassador Pinnock was also saying is that by targeting the Crimea bridge, essentially the Ukrainian side was saying that Crimea is also unfinished business. You're also putting Crimea back on the table. And if that signaled to Moscow that if Ukraine is going to hit previously unhit parts of Russian territory as they see it, then Russia is also going to counter that escalation with hits on Kyiv and other cities.
First of all, when Crimea became Russian territory?
Post 2014.
That's my question to you. You said that if Ukraine will hit Russian territory, when Crimea became Russian territory? India, like any other countries in the world, do not recognize annexation of Crimea. Crimea is Ukraine, and it was never finished business. It will never finish before Ukraine will regain control over Crimea. So that is the first thing. Second thing, I'm just interested to listen to you and to Ambassador, how they are saying this explosion, escalation, and referendum on our territories and annexation of Ukrainian land, 18% of our territory.
Yeah.
It's not escalation up to you. It's not the problem. It's not violation of international law. Maybe some other country will go and say that part of India is theirs. That will be okay? I'm quite shocked with what I am hearing. Thirdly, I've heard that it's far away, it's European war, India hasn't started, that's true. And it's not for sure any guilty of India. But the question is, Ambassador told recently that we just can make statements, votes. So one question, why India is always abstaining in the United Nations? When in the United Nations there is a resolution about stopping of this war, just stopping of the war. Tell me, show me any person in India. I'm sure that all Indians want any war on the planet to be stopped. Why India is not voting for these resolutions about stopping of the war? Just abstains, and again abstains.
Okay.
I can't understand this. And the last thing, it's not just war of Russia against Ukraine. It's war of tyrann Putin against democracy, Ukraine. And the biggest democracy in the world is India. And I think this is very important for India to show that democracy matters, because you also have many neighbors and not all of them are democratic, and they are making threat to you. So I think it's in interest of all democratic nations on the planet to be together. And I hope that the Indian government will change their position. And I'm very thankful to
Sushant, I'll give you the final word. I've got a minute to respond to what the Ukrainian MP just said.
Zaka, I don't want to respond to what he said because I can understand where he's coming from. But, listening to these people is rather rich when they start talking about democracy and stuff like that. Because we've seen, the kind of hypocrisy which goes with democracy, especially in the Western countries. But having said that, one thing is very important for India. This, as long as, it's all very well for the West to tell us that why are you buying Russian oil? What should we do? Let our economy go bust? Let our people die of hunger? What should we do? Do we not have a responsibility to our own people? The Western countries are cornering all the gas and the oil from the Middle Eastern markets. What are we supposed to do then? There are countries which are not able to get gas or oil even if they're ready to pay the price, because all these supplies are being commandeered by the Western countries. What are we supposed to do then? Die simply so that these guys can keep fighting, the Americans and the Western countries can, and then to hear these gratuitous remarks like that German foreign minister who does not know, I don't even know whether she's lettered enough to know what the Kashmir problem is. So when they pontificate and they feel they have a right to interfere in our business, then I think for them to expect that we are going to compromise on our security, on our interests, simply because of some hoary principle which they are propounding all over the world, I think that's rather rich coming from.
All right. We'll have to leave it at that, Sushant. I'm completely out of time. We're a truncated debate tonight, but we'll leave it at that. We'll see how the story plays out. There's going to be a UN vote later on tonight on these developments. An urgent G7 meeting has also been called. We'll keep a track of both of those developments. As we close, a quick reminder. These are the nominees for the Indian of the Year Social Change category. You can watch the grand finale live on the 12th of October, this Wednesday, starting 6 p.m. only here on CNN News 18.
मैं मांग रहा हूं आप सब लोग के समर्थन। ये मैं डेलीगेट्स को कह रहा हूं तो मैं आपके सामने ये पेश कर रहा हूं।
Haryana Home Minister Anil Vij has hit out at AIMIM Chief Asuddin Owaisi for his comment on declining Muslim population in India. Vij rebutted and said that population should further drop down and Hum Do Hamare Do should be followed.
AIMIM के चीफ असदुद्दीन ओवैसी जी ने कहा है कि हिंदुस्तान में मुसलमानों की आबादी गिर रही है। अगर गिर रही है तो बहुत अच्छी बात है, परंतु इसको और गिराओ और इसको हम दो हमारे दो तक लाओ।
Prime Minister Modi inaugurated the solar village in Modera in Gujarat. Modera has been declared India's first renewable energy village. Prime Minister is on a 3-day visit to election-bound Gujarat, where he will be inaugurating development projects over 14,500 crore rupees.
मोढेरा के लिए विकास की नई ऊर्जा का संचार हुआ है। बिजली, पानी से लेकर रोड, रेल तक कौशल विकास और स्वास्थ्य से जुड़े अनेक प्रोजेक्ट्स का आज लोकार्पण और शिलान्यास हुआ है।
Prime Minister Modi visited Modera's Surya Mandir and inaugurated the Light and Sound Show. He also attended and watched the glimpses of the spectacular Light and Sound Show, which will be open for the general public from tomorrow. Gujarat's Modera is India's first solar-powered village, and the Light and Sound Show will be powered by solar energy. Delhi Minister Rajendra Pal Gautam resigned from the post of Social Welfare Minister after his involvement in the mass conversion controversy to Buddhism. Gautam announced that his resignation in a letter typed on his letterhead, which he tweeted out. The former minister said that the BJP has been targeting several sections of the society for political gains, and he cannot be a mute spectator to that. Gautam further added that he resigned not under pressure.
मैं कभी किसी के फेथ को आहत कभी नहीं करता, किसी की भावनाओं को आहत कभी नहीं करता। मेरे ऊपर कोई दबाव नहीं है। मैं एक वकील हूं पेशे से। मुख्यमंत्री जी अभी रैली में हैं गुजरात में। मैंने अपना उनको भेज दिया है, अपना ये दो पेज के पत्र में मैंने सब कुछ लिख के उनको भेज दिया है। मैं तो एक कट्टर देशभक्त व्यक्ति हूँ और डॉक्टर बाबा साहेब अम्बेडकर और तथागत बुद्ध की शिक्षाओं को मानने वाला हूँ और उसमें मेरी आस्था है।
Post the resignation of the Aam Aadmi Party minister, BJP has hit out. They said that Arvind Kejriwal, and in its hard way, and the politics on Hindus does not fare well. BJP also expressed this as a win for the Hindus of the state of Gujarat.
जिस प्रकार से केजरीवाल को वडोदरा से गुजरात से भागना पड़ा, जनता का जो गुस्सा कल केजरीवाल ने देखा है, उसके कारण दिल्ली में वापस आते ही राजेंद्र पाल गौतम का इस्तीफा लेना पड़ा। अरविंद केजरीवाल को यह समझ में आ गया है कि हिंदू देवी देवताओं को गाली देकर, हिंदुओं के धर्म परिवर्तन का टारगेट बनाकर आप इस देश में, भारत में राजनीति नहीं कर सकते हैं। ऐसी राजनीति इस देश के लोग चलने नहीं देंगे।
The Election Commission has directed Eknath Shinde and Uddhav Thackeray to not use the name Shiv Sena or the party's symbol, the bow and arrow. Both parties will have to now submit their new symbols tomorrow ahead of next month's by-election. The Uddhav camp has already come out with its proposals. The Eknath Shinde group, meanwhile, has accused Uddhav Thackeray of making false affidavits. Police has seized 4,862 fake affidavits. FIR has also been registered in that case. Uddhav camp is likely to move the Supreme Court against the decision of the Election Commission to freeze the party's name and symbol. Remember, both the factions have been asked to submit their party's new symbols by 10th of October. BJP has lashed out against the Uddhav camp after EC froze the Shiv Sena's symbol. They have accused Uddhav Thackeray of having lost his Hindutva plank, now the party and the symbol.
सुना है बारामती में पटाखे फोड़े जा रहे हैं, दिवाली मनाई जा रही है, और इसे ही कहते हैं दोस्ती का नाटक करते हुए पीठ में खोपा गया खंजीर, या उद्धव जी की भाषा में गद्दारी।
उद्धव ठाकरे जी की शिवसेना ने सब खो दिया। पहले हिंदुत्व, फिर सरकार, उसके बाद में सिंबल, अब नाम भी गया, और सबसे महत्व की बात कि महाराष्ट्र की जनता का विश्वास भी उद्धव ठाकरे की शिवसेना ने खो दिया।
Union Home Minister Amit Shah is on a 3-day tour to the northeast and he visited the Kamakya temple in Assam's Guwahati, sought the blessings of goddess Kamakya. He was accompanied by the Chief Minister of Assam, Himanta Biswa Sarma. He also visited the Golaghat district to inaugurate the 2-day conference of the Superintendents of Police at the Police Training College. Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman slammed Telangana Chief Minister K. Chandrasekhar Rao after he renamed his party from TRS to BRS. She alleged that the name was changed due to belief in occult practices. She further added that KCR stopped going to the Secretariat or inducting women for many years in his cabinet based on advice given by his Tantrik. Telangana Education Minister hit back at the Finance Minister, saying there were 2 women ministers in the KCR cabinet for the last 3 years. KCR cabinet minister further added that it's embarrassing on part of the Finance Minister that she is not informed on basic information. Telangana BJP president joined in hitting out at KCR. He added that KCR has been performing tantric pujas for few years now, and it was a tantric who instructed him to change the name of the party to prevent losing elections. After the railways changed the name of Tipu Express to Wadiyar Express, AIMIM chief has attacked the central government by tweeting that Tipu Sultan irks the BJP because he waged 3 wars against his British masters. He further added that another train could have been named after the Wadiyars. BJP will never be able to erase Tipu's legacy, he said, as he was scared that Britishers even scare them now. BJP was quick to hit out at the AIMIM chief. Amit Malviya, the IT cell chief of the BJP, said in a tweet that BJP does not want to erase Tipu's legacy. On the contrary, it wants to show its true legacy. Malviya further added that Tipu was a barbarian who oppressed and tortured Hindus and Christians. Politics has erupted over the Mahakal corridor in Madhya Pradesh. Congress has claimed that the budget of 300 crore rupees was allocated for the beautification of the city by the former Kamal Nath government. Remember, the first phase of the Mahakal corridor, which was built at the cost of 856 crore rupees, will be inaugurated by Prime Minister Modi on the 11th of October. Amid the ongoing debate regarding population imbalance, AIMIM chief Asaduddin Owaisi has lashed out at RSS chief Mohan Bhagwat. Owaisi added that the population of Muslims isn't increasing but falling because of their use of condoms.
Total fertility rate वो 2% हो गया। माने इंडिया का फर्टिलिटी रेट बहुत ज्यादा गिरा और सबसे ज्यादा अगर TFR रेट गिरा मुसलमानों का गिरा। सबसे ज्यादा कॉन्डोम कौन इस्तेमाल कर रहा? नहीं, ये बताने के लिए हम इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं। मोहन भगवत इस पे नहीं बोलेंगे।
After Election Commission froze the Shiv Sena logo and forbade both factions from using it, Uddhav's faction hit back at the EC, calling the action unjust and stating that the EC is working on the same lines as the CBI. He said that the logo has been frozen long back by their faction.
7 तारीख को हम लोगों ने 4 बजे उनको सारे कागजात दे दिए थे। उनके आपस में संवाद अच्छी ठीक नहीं थे, इसके लिए उनको पता ही नहीं चला कि हमने दे दिए। अब सुनवाई कुछ भी नहीं हुई, निर्णय ले गया और निर्णय लेकर उन्होंने हमारा जो चुनाव चिन्ह है उसको फ्रीज कर दिया। क्यों नहीं करेंगे? क्लेम करेंगे, हम करेंगे, लेकिन ये कब होगा? जब जांच होगी तब। ये चुनाव आयोग भी उसमें ही गया जिसमें CBI ED हो, जो हम लोग लाइन में उसी लाइन में चुनाव आयोग।
Congress's presidential candidate Shashi Tharoor has expressed the need for reinstating strength in the party to gain voters. He said that the Congress has to run the country nicely, also adding that the BJP should prepare themselves to sit in the opposition in 2024.
परिवर्तन हमारे पार्टी में चाहिए और ये परिवर्तन ले आने वाला मैं सोचता हूं कि मैं हूं परिवर्तन की उम्मीदवार। बदलाव के लिए मैं खड़ा हूं, तो मैं मांग रहा हूं आप सब लोग के समर्थन। ये मैं डेलीगेट्स को कह रहा हूं, तो मैं आपके सामने ये पेश कर रहा हूं।
Haryana Home Minister Anil Vij has hit out at AIMIM chief Asudin Owaisi for his comment on declining Muslim population in India. Vij rebutted and said that population should further drop down and hum.
Good evening, hello and welcome to the special broadcast. I'm Anusha Soni. In a hugely controversial move, the Karnataka government's decision to allow Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh or RSS to hold training camps on the premises of state-run residential schools has created a political storm. While the move is backed by the recommendation of Kota Srinivasa Pujari, who is the Minister for Social Welfare. This has been allowed, as I said, at the state-run education institutes in about 2 districts, 2 schools broadly speaking. The move, primarily speaking, raises serious questions about the secular nature of government schools. That's what the law of the land says. While the government resisted, and rightly so, perhaps according to the view of the Karnataka High Court, hijab at the government-run institutions and schools, why should RSS be allowed to hold such camps at the state-run institutions? Our top focus tonight.
It is the duty of the government to see that all the educational institutions and other government offices has to be run as per secular credentials.
ನೇರವಾಗಿ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆಗಳನ್ನು RSS ಗೆ ಬಿಟ್ಟುಕೊಡುವಂತ ಒಂದು ಅಪಾಯಕಾರಿಯಾದಂತ ಹೆಜ್ಜೆಯನ್ನು ಹಾಕಿದೆ. ಇದನ್ನು ನಾವು ತೀವ್ರವಾಗಿ ವಿರೋಧ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ವಿ. ಈ ಕೂಡಲೇ ಕೂಡ ಈ ಆದೇಶವನ್ನು ವಾಪಸ್ ಪಡ್ಕೊಂಡು
While RSS camps in state-run institutes, is this another attempt towards saffronization? That's the key question that various people are asking, that if the secular nature of educational institutions in this country is to be maintained, can RSS be allowed to hold such camps? And the key question is this the first attempt or first move of this kind? In the recent past, we have seen various such controversies dominating the politics of Karnataka, and I'm talking specifically about the educational syllabus, schools, campuses. We have seen a lot of polarizing controversy around this. Let's take you through some key instances that we have seen in the past. Well, if you look at the recent history, in March 2022, there was a demand for hijab ban in schools. It was said by the Karnataka High Court that if the school curriculum does not permit, it cannot be allowed. It is not a part of the dress code. It is not an essential religious practice. BJP MLA also had demanded ban on madrasas. It has said that the MLA had said that there should be only one system of education, not multiple. In May 2022, you also had the icon, the right-wing icon, Mr. Hegdewar's speech included in class 10 textbooks. Syllabus has been a huge issue. Multiple things have been included in syllabus, including the likes of Vedic maths, which has raised a lot of controversy. Tipu Sultan was removed from class 7 chapters, and this is not just about the so-called saffronization. This is a contested history that dominates the politics of Karnataka. Chapters on Savarkar were added in class 8 textbooks. This, of course, is something that the Congress party, the JDS, had taken a strong exception to. They had said that it should not be allowed. And as I said, Vedic math to be taught to SC/ST students and to most of the students. It was actually a particular sum of money, a grant that was used to furthering the cause of Vedic maths. Bhagavad Gita to be part of the school curriculum. It had to be included in the moral science syllabus. That was another move that was taken by the Karnataka government. There were recommendations to that effect and they were implemented. So these are the multiple controversies that we have seen in the recent past. RSS training camps, the latest one to be allowed in 2 state government schools, and these are residential schools where these training camps are going to be allowed. It is being argued that this is a move of some kind to instill nationalism, discipline or yoga in these institutes and classes. Let me cut across to my colleague Harish, who is with us on the broadcast, getting us more details on this entire story. Harish, help us understand, how does the government justify this move? RSS, with all its credentials, is a Hindu organization. It talks about, furthering the cause of many other communities in this country, but it has very strong majoritarian credentials. On what grounds has the government taken this decision, even if it is just about 2 districts or 2 schools?
Well, the decision seems to have been made after a letter by the Minister, Social Welfare Minister, Mr. Pujari, and then what we do understand is that after this letter was written is when this permission came in. Now there are 2 questions here. One, on whether this entire decision has the backing of the whole government. Second, why is it that the government is giving out government infrastructure to RSS, which is once again, as you rightly mentioned, is an organization that has a certain ideology which is being opposed by a large section of the society. The third question that many are asking is, if the government then has a policy to give out government schools or government infrastructure to institutions or organizations, then it could open up a Pandora's box. You will have people or organizations coming in from various other quarters of the society demanding the same. Will the government then accept it? In fact, the JDS just a while ago said, if tomorrow an Islamic organization comes in and says that they want to have a certain training, then would the government be open to the idea of giving out government infrastructure or government schools to such organizations? Will the BJP accept it is what they're asking. They're also saying that the fact that this is being allowed without much deliberation, either with the parents, the students, or even the school management committee, indicates that this is being done arbitrarily by a few ministers in this particular government, and the opposition also not taken into consideration. They're also saying it's a larger plan of saffronization. They're saying it started with saffronization of textbooks and syllabus. It started with leaving out certain contents that this government believed was not good for students, which also had the writings of some of the writers who are largely seen as leftist or liberal. And as you rightly mentioned, just a few weeks back, we had this incident of the government giving money from the SC/ST sub-plan to Vedic maths teaching to students. Once again, that also in a very arbitrary manner, no consultation either with the experts or with the parents or students. And series of such actions now is coming under criticism and gives more opportunity for the Congress to say that this is a wider plan, this is a plan of the RSS and the government is just implementing it. And now as well, they are saying that this is one of the prime reasons for the government to go ahead and give this institution or two institutions for RSS training without any deliberation. And
Harish,
it's being done
there are
because it's
2
the
points
RSS.
I want to
They're
discuss
also
with you
saying
very
that
specifically.
if it's not stopped now, it could go much farther with several other camps as well. And they're also saying what is being taught here and why is it that, once again, remember, Moraji Desai schools are for SC/ST students.
That's right.
And why is it that a certain community is now being targeted, their infrastructure, their funding being utilized to appropriate or further the cause of RSS?
All right, Harish, 2 points that I want to discuss with you. There's a pattern. The pattern is that when you allow Vedic maths in 2 schools or in 2 districts or 3 districts, or you allow RSS to conduct camps in 2 districts, as you said, these are very piecemeal attempts or decisions being taken without any kind of broader consultation. So at a policy level, the government maintains a plausible deniability that these are experiments. We're just seeing how it really goes. But on the other side, the politics of it creates a completely different kind of a discourse. And somewhere in the run-up to the elections, this discourse is setting the tempo of Karnataka politics.
Absolutely, and it's been on an overdrive over the last year or so. It started with revision of textbooks. It's gone to a level where we've had a huge controversy around Ganesh Chaturthi pandals having Savarkar's photo there, and then BJP leaders coming out and saying what's wrong with this. We've also had questions on what is taught in the syllabus, Vedic math class being introduced without any sort of a demand from anyone, once again being funded by the SC/ST sub-plan. And just even as we are discussing about reservation for SC/ST candidates and who will take credit for it, now you have this particular order of the government coming under severe criticism. In fact, the Student Federation of India, one of the student organization, has come out and said, well, we just see it as a larger plan being implemented. How can the government justify this? If tomorrow the SFI demands that they want to have some sort of a camp, will the government be open to the idea of giving out buildings, especially government schools? We've seen playgrounds being given out to private institutions, but never before, they say, has the government given the whole school infrastructure for an organization that has a certain religious ideology.
Absolutely. Thank you, Harish, for getting us all the details and your perspective to this entire story. I open this question to our guest as well. Mr. Ratan Sharda, who's a researcher and RSS researcher and author, is joining us on the broadcast. Mr. B.S. Arun, who's a senior journalist, is also with us on the broadcast. Professor Chambi Puranik, who is also with us on the show. He's an academician. And Ashpreet Singh Kadial, who's a spokesperson of the Congress Party, is also joining us. Mr. Ratan Sharda, I'm coming to you first. This is a subject that you research upon. This is an ideology you know best. Do you think that at secular schools run by the state, RSS should be allowed to hold camps of this nature?
First of all, I must congratulate a journalist who has been highly fired up by the secular talk. His entire reporting was so much biased that I was amused and smiling all the way. Now let us hit 3-4 major points. One is RSS taking over the school? It is taking some part on rental for its own tailing program. Is it asking the school to change the dress? Is it asking school to follow its syllabus? Is it asking school to do the training for the students? None of it. They are just taking some premise on rental or on any kind of basis to train their people. It has been happening for last 90 years because RSS training camps held once a year across India in hundreds of places. They hire halls, they hire schools, they hire any premise that will house certain number of people. So what's wrong in that? I do not know. So where does the hijab and all this stupidity come? I do not know what kind of comparison this is.
Okay.
Secondly, talk about Vedic maths. Do you know that Vedic maths is internationally accepted as one of the best training of mind for mathematical calculations? Just because the knowledge comes from Hindu dharma, should you throw it away in the name of communalism or secularism? I see this blind hate for Hindu knowledge system is actually very heartbreaking. On what ground are you saying Vedic mathematics is bad? Tipu Sultan was never a hero of Karnataka. He was made a hero of Karnataka by a novel written by Bhagwan Gidwani way back in 70-80 called Sword of Sultan. Tipu Sultan, before there was never a hero. So when I say that he cannot be a hero who has killed thousands of Hindus and Christians, what is the problem with that? Bringing this together, you are saying that will you allow Islamics and Islamic people to have the organization if they are like PFN naturally? Is RSS not a legal organization? Has RSS ever crossed legal limits? Has RSS disobeyed constitution? Has RSS sent people to Syria or Arabia or any part of the country, the nation for throwing bombs or killing people or recruiting women for sexual comfort of terrorists? No. So where is the comparison?
Okay, Mr. Ratan Sharda,
doing above board training for people to create nationalist patriotic citizens.
Okay, you made some points and I noted down all those points. Finish your point. Finish your point, sir. Finish your point, sir. Finish your point.
I am very upset with the kind of reporting you are doing. Do you know that the same training is used for disaster management, for serving people, for controlling traffic during war times? You don't know.
All right.
You are simply
No. Sir. I think no. Mr. Ratan Sharda, I have a lot of respect for you and the kind of research you do or the ideology you come from. I have a personal regard for you. But that being said, I think you're being thoroughly unfair by terming the entire reporting or the manner in which we are framing the debate as biased. Now, let me allow me and let me respond to you point by point. What my colleague Harish was reporting is essentially the politics which is playing out in the state of Karnataka. As a journalist, I think he was doing his job. I agree with you that one cannot draw some kind of parallels between a PFI and an RSS. I think these are two very different organizations, and PFI is allegedly under scanner, has been banned by the government of India for terror activities. So I'm not treading into that debate. Coming to the Vedic math, hijab, these are the 2 points that you made. I think if there is any knowledge that comes from our ancient texts or our Sanatan culture, there should be a proper research about it. It should be updated according to modern times. And so let me finish. I let you make your point. You would have to allow me to make my points. And then it should be implemented as a larger policy in the state. If Vedic math is good for the student of the state of Karnataka, why there was no wider consultation done and the policy implemented across? The second point you made about hijab. Hijab was not just about covering your head or tweaking the school uniform. It was about a religious expression. And RSS does denote a religious identity. That's what everybody has an exception to. That you might be an organization doing great work for the cause of the community, for the cause of the nation, but you have a religious identity. We cannot allow you in state-run education institutes. Mr. Ratan Sharda, please go ahead.
First of all, what do you mean by wider consultation? Is government not authorized by the voters, which has a majority to take decisions? If you think that, do you know Vedic mathematics is discussed across the world? Are you aware of this?
Yes, I'm aware. Bhagavad Gita is researched in dozens and dozens of countries. It has been translated into multiple languages, incling Russian. The Germans and Russians are researching about it. So I don't think there is any bias for Indic knowledge and Indic faith. I'm not going to take that. I'm not going to take that allegation. Okay.
You allow me to complete my point. Tomorrow you will say, because maths come from Hindu rishis of long time, calculus, trigonometry, and various astronomical calculations come from Hindu rishis.
No, one thing is there, Mr. Ratan Sharda, and this is my request to you as a fair debater. You would have to let go of this point. You would have to let go of this point that just because something is coming from Hinduism, people are criticizing it. Nobody is doing that here. Nobody is doing that here. Nobody is criticizing anything only because it comes from Hindu religion or our Sanatani practices. I don't think that's the argument that is anybody. When did I say that?
That's what opposition is saying.
Opposition is saying. Then you are making an argument. Let me bring in Arshpreet Singh Kardial into the discussion and debate as well. Arshpreet, when you talk about an organization like RSS holding these camps, the argument of the likes of Mr. Ratan Sharda and many other people is that don't compare it to a PFI. These are organizations which are working for the benefit of the nation and they are going to do their work. They are only training students. What is the big controversy about it? Arshpreet.
Well, the controversy is first it was textbooks, then it was syllabus, then it was history, now it's this. So, where does the buck stop? We don't understand why does, everything has to be politicized. Why do you not understand that India is a secular state? We have a preamble, for God's sake, which says, we the people of India, socialist, sovereign, secular, democratic republic. Please read that. And number two, how can the RSS intrude into schools? And it's not a single incident that has happened. It also happened in Coimbatore, in Tamil Nadu, wherein, the Express Chennai, it uploaded videos also on their official Twitter page, wherein it can clearly be seen that they were being given training. And when the RSS had to respond to that, they said, no, we were just cleaning. When the video clearly showcases there was training taking place, a show cause notice has been sent, and the RSS is denying it. However, with regards to the Karnataka thing, SFI has already said that we are going to be protesting, and the state secretary, Mr. Vishwa Reddy, he said this is not just about normal schools. as a matter of fact, the residential schools which are specially catering to SC, ST, and OBC students, there it is happening as a case. So therefore, we ask the government, what is happening there? There's a rule of law. We have a constitution. It is not just wrong in the first place. It's also illegal. There is no provision that allows this. And number two, the parents of all these students, of all these kids, they're having a hard time. They are protesting. They're calling the RSS out, and they're questioning the school authorities as well. They're questioning the government, but to no avail. So therefore, I think it is very important for the media to call the organizations out, because nobody is above the law of the land. They have to follow the law, or else I really feel that there should be some action.
No, Ashpreet, I take your point about the educational policy, and there is a law of the land. Preamble, Part 3 of the Indian Constitution defines how we should be run. Those are the broader tenets of the Indian Constitution which are there and everybody to follow. And if the government thinks there is a change in the education policy which is demanded, they should make the changes at a policy level, not the piecemeal approach that the government is taking. But there's another allegation, Ashpreet, against the Congress party and the opposition that Mr. Ratan Shada was talking about, that you have an allergy to anything which comes from the Indic or the Sanatani tradition. You start criticizing it just because it's Vedic maths.
I think it is ludicrous what he's saying. It's absurd. There is no such thing at all. We are only concerned with, the nature of the constitution, what the law of the land says. And if politicization were to happen to everything, even the, the schools, the colleges, the universities, the kids, imagine what will it do? It would wreak a havoc in the society. These small kids, they are of a very tender age. They have to be given information, and they have to be, educated. And we cannot allow any organization to intrude into it. Like the law of the land.
Professor Chambi Puranik, I want you to come into the discussion. Professor Chambi Puranik, I want you to come into the discussion as an academician. How do you see the move of the government? And more importantly, I assert this, that if the government thinks that our model of education or the education policy needs changes, we need to be more indigenous or rooted in the way and manner we learn, they should make changes at the policy level, not in the manner which is happening in the state of Karnataka.
Anusha, I fully respect Mr. Shah's defense of the role of RSS and the activities that it is doing. Truly, it is Indira Gandhi and Pranab Mukherjee and many others, recently Mohan Bhagwat, all of them have, come together to bring an inclusive growth of society. But as far as the education policy is concerned, I think in 1988 or so, the Government of India, Ministry of Home Affairs has issued a circular saying that no religious activities should be undertaken in the government school premises or state-run institutions, etc. Now, in this present case, it is a government-run institution, and there is a kind of Lakshman Rekha which the government should not cross, because earlier Congress government's appeasement policy and the present BJP government's policy of entering into the premises of the schools or through textbooks and other ideas, all that, it is a kind of part of the competitive politics or the vote bank politics, etc. So let us be very clear about it. Let us not have any apprehensions about it. So that means to say, recently, the idea of new India, in India, including the kind of fresh ideas, insights, progressive thinking or scientific temper, and all these things have to be on the forefront, right? And also the Constitution of India, the preamble of India. And some of these things are more important than entering into either indirectly or through some kind of piecemeal approach, etc. So therefore, I think the present BJP government in Karnataka, in its enthusiasm to spread its whatever impact or influence, a series of incidents which Harish and you have reported, they are also part of the political agenda. There is no doubt about it. But the bigger agenda is to inculcate new values in the minds of our young children, and that too schools and all that. It is okay if you give it for NSS camp, NCC camp, and many other government institutions, many other government-run, whatever these paramilitary organizations or discipline-oriented organizations, etc. But so far, this particular thing, holding RSS camps in a state-run institution or state-funded institution, I think it's the first of its kind. Definitely, Student Federation of India and many others, they were waiting for some or the other point to create some kind of confusion and all that. That is there. So that means to say,
well, sir,
peace
my
and harmony should not be disturbed.
argument is only the educational policy and the constitution of the country. If they don't allow that, no organization with any kind of religious backing or credentials should be allowed at state-run educational institutes, be it any organization of this country. I'm not even going to the debate of Muslim organization or a Hindu organization. I also want Mr. B.S. Arun to come into this debate. And sir, as Professor Puranik pointed out, that education has remained a politically contested territory. Earlier, it was the appeasement politics of the Congress party that was criticized. Today is a different brand of politics, but each kind of its politics has affected the educational sector, the campuses, the schools, the textbooks and syllabuses.
Yes, over the last few months, Karnataka has become a very fertile ground, as much as a laboratory for several experiments by various organizations. Over the last few months, from March onwards, it had been hijab, and political parties made full use of that. The state government, the Karnataka High Court has upheld the hijab wearing decision. They are against it, and now it has been contested in the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court is likely to give a decision likely this week. Now, having said that, my view also has been that the educational institutions premises should be used only for educational issues, and not for anything that's outside it. And those programs which are permitted by that particular school or by the government's education department. Other than this, nothing else should be permitted in the school premises because they are not meant for that. As
what is the political messaging, Mr. B.S. Arun, that the BJP is trying to send in here? If you were to simply put it.
In Karnataka, the assembly elections are just about 6-7 months away, and one by one, perhaps the BJP ruled, the BJP government might be trying its hand to, just test the waters as to what happens if we do this, what happens if we don't do this, that kind of a thing must be.
Mr. Radhan Sharda, I'm coming back to you, and I will take in all the points that B.S. Arun, Professor Chambi Puranik and Ashpreet have raised. My first point, if the constitution says that state-run institutes need to be secular in nature, why allow any organization? I'm not even going to a PFI or a Muslim organization or anything. RSS is an organization which works for the cause of Hindu community in this country. Great work, but perhaps school is not their place.
First of all, RSS is not a religious organization, it is a socio-cultural organization.
Yes.
And it works for Hindus as a geographical cultural identity, not for Hindu as religions, as you understand.
Right.
It never has no program of religious programs in its training camps. That is personal. Please go ahead, and I would ask all the good professors and writers to go visit the camp where it is happening. And you think before the Karnataka government gave this particular school, RSS never had a training program? RSS is having training program, as I told you, for last 97 years.
Sir, or ye training programs we see in the parks, we see in different areas. RSS shakas and training programs are very common. You're right about that. The argument is it should not happen in state-run education institutes.
Let me complete.
Please go ahead,
is RSS working during the school hours? Is it a program for the school student because it's holding the program there? It is the building, it is the ground that it is using. It is not using your students, your principals or teachers. Please understand. Any building which is available for hire or for use to any social organization should be available to RSS also. Why you should say that no, the building should not be used? Every state, wherever you get school building, college buildings are used for various social cultural organizations for use of its property, for better use of assets. What is wrong in that? And is it an illegal activity? No. Tomorrow give to any legal entity, there is no problem. Why you should not? Why you should not use the assets for better purposes?
Because you open a Pandora's box. Today it's one organization. Tomorrow there would be other organization which is a socio-cultural organization, and they would say we are not doing any religious work. Allow us within the school campuses and buildings. It's the state property.
Unless giving illegal activity, do allow them. Unless PFI says that I'm going to train people to kill, to say that you are supremacist, no other religion or no other follower has a right to exist, you must support caliphate, etc. It's fine. Why not?
Well, sir, then let me put it to you, and I'm sure you will not like this argument, that a similar argument was put during the hijab debate, that if I'm wearing a school uniform and I'm putting a scarf over it, what is your problem? Sir, the problem is religious expression, na? The problem is religious expression.
My dear friend, my dear friend, is RSS forcing its uniform on others? Where does hijab come in? What kind of illogical debate for the first time hearing? You are comparing a hijab in uniform controversy to RSS training camp. Is RSS forcing its uniform on others?
Can I justify
you will not wear your uniform when you go to schools? No. It's very, very superficial debate you are doing.
I don't think, no sir, I don't think it's superficial, because I understand the meaning of secular in Indian constitution. That we will have all kinds of religious practices, that we are a country accommodative of our...
Please understand.
But sir, it is a part of our constitution now, we'll have to accept it.
Into Constitution 1976.
And then it was affirmed by the Supreme Court of India that secularism is a basic tenet of Indian constitution.
Secularism does not mean non-religious.
I am not saying it does mean that.
Secularism which says you are non-religious. In India, secular means respect for all
religions.
Okay,
sir, respond to my second point, sir.
Religion.
Sir, second point. Is this
India
legal?
cannot live without religion. That is the truth.
I agree. That's the soul of this country.
Swami Vivekananda. Read Swami Vivekananda.
I have read Swami Vivekananda with all due respect, but I'm asking you, is this legal?
Does he say that, what has he said? He said Indians are religious by nature. It's in their blood. So we cannot become non-religious.
I'm going to give the last word. I'm going to give the last word to Ashpreet Singh Kadial. Ashpreet, the argument that Ratan Sharda and BJP are making is that this is a socio-cultural activity. And if the building is available to anybody, then why not to RSS? Why are you making a big deal about it? We are not polarizing. You are polarizing.
One, the gentleman said that the government is empowered to do so.
Yeah.
If there is any official notification, any official amendment, any official gazette, I think, they should show it, because the RSS itself is making a U-turn. And number two, he said that, it's just a building, anyone can use it. No, it's not just a building. It's the building of a state-run government school. It does not belong to you. And if the government does not take any action, there are courts.
Anybody can take it on hire. Why not? Why can't any legal organization take it on hire?
He will make sure that this is called out. He will make sure that this is called out. And number two, RSS itself cannot take a stand. RSS is denying.
Well, we only hope that there is a consistent education policy which is pursued by the government of Karnataka in line with the ethos of Indian constitution, which is the secular nature. Secular doesn't mean without any religion, but yes, there is a line that policy and law has drawn in this country. With that, it's a wrap. I thank all my guests. Shivani joins you on the other side.
Welcome everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. Communal violence has once again flared up in West Bengal, this time in the Mominpura area of Kolkata itself. Allegedly, post a flag during Milad-un-Nabi was vandalized. We don't quite exactly know by whom. Angry mobs ran riot on the streets of the area, attacking houses and shops, allegedly predominantly of Hindu residents, even vandalizing a Durga Puja pandal on the occasion of Lakshmi Puja. All of this violence first started with an attack on the Iqbalpura police station, where mobs were caught on camera taking it over. If such is the state of the police, you can imagine the terror in the minds of the ordinary citizens. Similar scenes emerged from Mayurbhanj in Kolkata, where Hindu houses were attacked and people were seen leaving their premises. Leader of opposition Suvendu Adhikari has written to Home Minister Amit Shah, urging him to deploy central forces before BJP also carried out a protest march to Raj Bhavan this afternoon on the deteriorating law and order situation in West Bengal. Has this indeed become a new normal in Bengal, where mobs rule the roost and predominantly Hindu minorities in certain localities have become easy targets? No matter what the issue, what the flare-up. For example, the post-poll violence after the results were announced of the assembly elections last year, the target in Bengal remains consistent: Hindus. We will take those questions to our panelists in just a bit, but first a reminder of what's lined up. Coming up is an exclusive conversation with former BJP MP Swapan Das Gupta, who's written to the Prime Minister about the incident highlighting the state of Hindu minorities in some areas. But before we bring you that conversation, let's also break down what we know of really what happened. So a religious flag put up for Milad-un-Nabi was allegedly vandalized on Saturday night. That was the trigger as far as we know right now. Angry mobs then vandalized vehicles and property, allegedly only of Hindu residents, pelting stones in response. Mob also surrounded the Iqbalpur police station and virtually took it over. Since then, cops have detained as many as 38 people for creating the ruckus in the area. And today, BJP State President Sukanta Majumdar was arrested as he was trying to visit the affected area. One of the questions that also arises is, why was the opposition stopped from visiting these areas? BJP has also invoked the memory of the ghastly Naukhali riots in the wake of this latest communal flare-up in West Bengal. What were these riots exactly and why are they drawing this parallel? This ugly chapter of Indian history took place between October-November 1946 in districts of Naukhali in Chittagong division of Bengal then. A series of semi-organized massacres, rapes and abductions of the Hindu community. This massacre of Hindu population started on the day of Lakshmi Puja and continued for a week. And this is why the BJP has sought to draw a parallel of what happened in the weekend gone by in Bengal and also around Lakshmi Puja. Now, it is estimated that 5,000 Hindus were killed. Hundreds of Hindu women were actually raped during this one period of massacre and mayhem. And thousands of Hindu men and women were forcibly converted to Islam. The reality is that major law and order disturbances indeed have taken place in Bengal just since the last 1 year, since the new term of Mamata Banerjee-led TMC government in 2021. It all started in May-June itself, post the result of the assembly elections. Large-scale, vengeful violence aimed at BJP workers and supporters, also Hindu community, post the assembly results. Remember, the BJP claims 57 of their workers were killed, and after much dilly-dallying, even the courts came down heavily on the law and order machinery with respect to post-poll violence. In March 2022,